My name is Ana Morales. I am 36 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I signed away everything I owned to my husband. The house in Beverly Hills, 6 rental properties, 2 luxury cars, his real estate company, every dollar in our joint accounts. My lawyer begged me not to do it. My mother-in-law smiled like she'd just won a war. And Lena, my husband's 25-year-old mistress, sat in the back of the courtroom scrolling through her phone like she was waiting for brunch. My husband, Marcus Reed, didn't even try to hide his contempt. When I picked up the pen, he leaned toward his lawyer and muttered loud enough for me to hear, "Finally, she's doing one smart thing in her entire life." I signed, and Marcus smiled like he had just erased me from existence. What he didn't know was that his smile had a countdown on it. But before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, I need to take you back 10 years to the moment Marcus first decided I was stupid. I met Marcus when I was 26 years old. I had just moved to Los Angeles from Colombia, carrying 2 suitcases, a nursing degree that meant nothing in the United States, and an accent people loved to mock. My English was broken, my confidence was worse. Marcus was 32, tall, charming, and already flipping houses in Silver Lake. He drove a black Mercedes and wore expensive watches, and he loved talking about money like it was his native language. He told everyone he had rescued me. "This is Anna," he would say proudly at parties, his arm tight around my waist. "She barely spoke English when I met her. Now she's my wife." People would laugh politely. I would smile. At first, I thought it was romantic. Then I realized something painful. Marcus didn't think I was cute. He thought I was beneath him. After we got married, he slowly took everything away from me. "You don't need to work," he told me one night, sitting at the edge of our bed like he was doing me a favor. "I make enough money for both of us. Just take care of the house and the kids. That's what you're good at." So I stayed home. I cleaned, I cooked, I raised our 2 children, Mateo, who was now 8, and Sophia, who was 5. And Marcus built what he called his empire. He never showed me bank statements, never explained contracts, never let me attend meetings, never even told me how much money he actually made. Whenever I asked questions, he would smile like I was a child asking about the stock market. "You wouldn't understand any of this anyway, Anna," he'd say casually. "Real estate is complicated. Just trust me." And because I loved him, I did. The cheating started quietly. At first, it was just small things I couldn't prove. A new phone password, late investor dinners, a sweet floral perfume on his jackets that wasn't mine. One night, while he was taking off his tie, I finally asked him, my voice shaking even though I tried to sound calm, "Marcus, are you seeing someone else?" He laughed in my face. Actually laughed. "Don't be dramatic," he said, walking past me toward the shower. "You should be grateful I even married you." That was the first night I cried alone in the bathroom, and the first night I felt something inside me start to crack. The truth came by accident. 2 years ago, I was looking for our son's birth certificate in Marcus's home office. He had forgotten to lock the drawer. Inside was a thick folder stamped in red, "Final notice past due." I opened one letter, then another, then another. Bank loans, private lenders, interest warnings, foreclosure threats. Over $3.8 million in debt.
My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down in his leather chair just to keep myself from falling. Marcus wasn't rich. Marcus was drowning, and he had never told me. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't confront him. Instead, I opened my laptop, and for the first time in my life, I started teaching myself finance.
That first night after I found the debt letters in Marcus's drawer, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed beside him, listening to his slow, confident breathing, staring at the ceiling and replaying those red-stamped words in my head again and again. Final notice, past due, foreclosure. Every number I had seen on those papers felt unreal, like my brain was refusing to accept that the man who mocked my intelligence every day was quietly destroying our entire family. The next morning, Marcus kissed my forehead on his way out the door like nothing was wrong. "Big meeting today," he said casually. "Probably home late." I watched his car disappear down our driveway, and for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel like a wife. I felt like a stranger living inside someone else's lie. I started small. I Googled words I had seen in those letters: commercial loan default, interest capitalization, foreclosure timeline. At first, none of it made sense, but something inside me refused to stop. Every afternoon after I dropped Mateo and Sophia at school, I sat at the kitchen table with my old laptop and taught myself things Marcus had always said were too complicated for me. Weeks turned into months. The more I learned, the worse the truth became. Marcus's company wasn't just struggling, it was collapsing. He was taking new loans to pay old ones, refinancing properties that were already underwater, lying to private lenders about rental income that didn't exist. And then I found something that made my stomach turn cold. 2 personal loans, both in our names, both signed with my signature. Except I had never signed them. I had never even seen these loans. When I realized what that meant, I had to run to the bathroom and throw up. My husband wasn't just lying. He was committing fraud, using my name, using my identity, risking prison. And if everything collapsed, the banks wouldn't care that I was just the wife. Legally, half of this mess was mine. That night, Marcus came home smelling like floral perfume again. I served him dinner like always: rice, chicken, vegetables. He ate while scrolling his phone, didn't look at me once. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to sound calm. "Marcus," I said quietly, "can I ask you something about our finances?" He looked up slowly, annoyed. "Why?" "Because I'm your wife, because we have kids." He leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "Anna, this is exactly why I don't involve you in business. You panic over nothing. You wouldn't understand any of it anyway. Just stay in your lane." Something inside me hardened. I nodded. I said, "I'm sorry," softly. He went back to his phone. And in that moment, I knew something terrifying and clarifying at the same time. Marcus would never tell me the truth, which meant if I wanted to survive what he was doing, I would have to become smarter than him. 3 weeks later, I enrolled in an online finance and accounting program. I didn't tell Marcus. I paid for it using a small savings account I had quietly built over the years, from birthday money, grocery cashbacks, and tiny amounts he never noticed. Every night after the kids fell asleep, I studied balance sheets, loan structures, interest schedules, asset valuation, contract law basics. Some nights I cried from exhaustion. Some nights I fell asleep at my desk, but I didn't stop.
6 months later, I knew more about Marcus's company than he thought I ever could. And that's when I discovered the worst part of all. He wasn't just hiding debt. He was hiding lawsuits. 3 tenants had sued his company for unsafe living conditions. One former business partner was suing him for fraud. And every single one of those lawsuits were tied to the properties that were legally half mine.
By the time I discovered the lawsuits, something inside me had already changed. Not loudly, not dramatically. It changed quietly, the way bones heal after a break, slowly knitting themselves back together into something harder than before. Every afternoon, after I closed my laptop and logged out of my online classes, I would sit alone at the kitchen table for a few extra minutes, staring at the wall and replaying everything I now knew. The debt, the forged signatures, the fake rental income, the hidden lawsuits, and always the same thought would come back to me again and again. If this all explodes, he won't go down alone. I would. Marcus became more careless after that. Not more loving, not more honest, just sloppier. He stopped hiding the late nights, stopped making excuses that even sounded believable. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at all. Other nights he would walk in after midnight, smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, acting annoyed that dinner wasn't still warm. Once, while he was in the shower, his phone lit up on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The preview message said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I miss you already." My hands went cold. I stood there, staring at the screen until it went dark again. And in that moment, strangely enough, I didn't feel jealous. I felt relieved. Because now I knew exactly how little I still meant to him. The first time he humiliated me in public was at his mother's birthday dinner. A long dining table, white tablecloths, crystal glasses, family members I had cooked for and smiled at for 10 years. We were already seated when the front door opened. Marcus walked in late. And he wasn't alone. He held the door open for a young woman in a tight black dress and high heels that clicked sharply against the marble. Click, click, click. Each sound felt like it echoed inside my chest. "Anna," Marcus said casually, like he was introducing a coworker. "This is Lena. She's been helping me with some business things." Lena smiled at me. Not nervous, not embarrassed, confident. She stepped forward and held out her hand. "Nice to finally meet you," she said. Finally. That one word burned. My mother-in-law leaned forward, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, she's beautiful," she whispered to Marcus. Not quietly enough. No one said the word mistress. No one needed to. Marcus placed his hand on Lena's lower back, guided her to the seat beside him. My seat. "Anna, be a dear and help Maria bring out dessert," her mother said, already dismissing me. I stood up slowly. In the kitchen, I stared at my reflection in the microwave door. My face looked pale, older, smaller than it used to be. And for the first time in 10 years, I understood something with complete clarity. This man is not my husband anymore. That night, after the kids were asleep, Marcus didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't even pretend. He stood in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, already emotionally gone.
"I want a divorce," he said flatly. "I'm not happy. This marriage isn't working." My heart pounded, but my voice stayed calm. "I see." "I'm keeping the house, the cars, and the company," he continued. "You can keep the kids. I'm not interested in custody drama." Our kids, like they were furniture. "They'll be fine with you," he added. "You're good at that stuff." I stared at him, at the man who forged my name, hidden millions in debt, risked my freedom. "Is that everything you want?" I asked quietly. He smirked. "Yes, everything." And inside me, something went very still, very clear. The next morning, he moved out. 2 suitcases. That was it. 2 weeks later, Lena posted a photo of them on a balcony downtown. Champagne glasses, city lights, #new beginnings. I stared at that picture for a long time. Then I closed the app and opened my finance textbook. His lawyer contacted me 3 days later, then emailed me, then sent formal letters. They wanted me to sign fast. No alimony, no property, no business, just my clothes and custody of my children. Everyone told me to fight, but I didn't. I told his lawyer I needed time, and quietly, I made one call to a woman named Helen Park, a divorce attorney who specialized in financial abuse and hidden debt cases. She listened to everything: the fraud, the loans, the lawsuits, the mistress, the demands. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Do you want revenge?" she asked softly. I closed my eyes. "No, I want out." "Then," she replied, "we give him exactly what he wants." 3 weeks later, Marcus sat across from me in a glass office downtown, relaxed and smiling. "You should really sign this," he said. "My lawyer says you're being unreasonable by delaying." I picked up the thick agreement and flipped through it slowly. "I'll give you everything," I said quietly. His eyebrows rose. "Everything?" "The house, the properties, the company, the accounts." His smile spread, slow and arrogant. "Finally," he said, "you're being smart for once." What Marcus didn't know was that Helen and I had spent 2 weeks rewriting that agreement, page by page, line by line, burying one clause so deep inside it, only a very careful lawyer would ever notice.
Marcus didn't read the agreement. Not really. He flipped through the pages like they were a restaurant menu he already knew by heart, stopping only to point at a few sections with a smug little smile, as if he were checking off prizes he had already claimed. The house, the properties, the company, the bank accounts. Every time his finger landed on another asset with his name beside it, his shoulders relaxed more and more, like a man who believed his future had just been secured forever. "You see," he said lightly, leaning back in his chair, "this didn't have to be so complicated. You just needed time to calm down." I sat across from him in the glass-walled conference room, my hands folded neatly in my lap, my face carefully empty. Outside the window, the city moved like nothing important was happening. Cars cast, people walked, life continued. Inside that room, my entire past was being erased, and my future was being rewritten. His lawyer, Mr. Collins, adjusted his glasses and glanced at me. "Anna," he said professionally, "you understand that by signing this agreement, you are waiving any claim to marital assets, spousal support, or business interests."
Yes, I said softly. And you understand that all real estate holdings, corporate liabilities, and legal matters tied to Mr. Reed's company will remain with him exclusively. Yes. Marcus smirked. You hear that? He said. She finally gets it. I lowered my eyes like I was ashamed. Inside, my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The judge entered 10 minutes later. Everyone stood. The courtroom was quiet in a heavy, serious way that made even Marcus sit up straighter. The clerk called our case. We stepped forward. The judge looked at me kindly. Mrs. Reed, is this agreement being entered into voluntarily, without pressure or coercion? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. And you understand that this agreement is fair? There was a small pause. A very small pause, just long enough for Marcus to glance at me with a warning look. Yes, I said quietly. The judge nodded. Marcus signed first. Big, confident strokes, like a man autographing his own victory. Then his lawyer slid the pen toward me. For half a second, my hand hovered above the paper. I thought about Mateo's laugh, about Sophia's bedtime stories, about the debt letters, about the forged signatures, about the lawsuits hiding in dark folders on my laptop. Then I signed. Anna Reed. Clean, steady, final. When it was over, Marcus exhaled like he had been holding his breath for months. He stood up and straightened his suit jacket. Good luck, Anna, he said politely. You're going to need it. I smiled faintly. You too, Marcus. He laughed softly like I had just told a joke. Outside the courthouse, Lena was waiting for him. Tight dress, perfect hair, sunglasses too big for her face. She ran into his arms. It's done? She asked excitedly. All done, he said proudly. I got everything. She kissed him hard. I watched from a distance, holding Mateo's hand in one hand and Sophia's in the other. They didn't even look at us. Not once. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered quietly. Yes? This is Daniel Brooks, a man's voice said calmly. I represent North Valley Bank. My stomach tightened. I'm calling to inform you that the court has approved the transfer of all real estate assets and corporate ownership into Mr. Marcus Reed's sole name. I stayed silent. Which means, he continued, all outstanding commercial loans, defaults, and pending litigation are now legally his responsibility alone. I closed my eyes. Thank you, I whispered. 2 days later, Marcus called me for the first time since the divorce. His voice was different. Not confident, not arrogant. Thin, panicked. Anna? He said quickly. Did you know anything about these lawsuits? I leaned against my kitchen counter, staring at the wall. Yes, I said calmly. What do you mean, yes? He snapped. These debts, these loans, these court cases, they're all in my name now. There was a long silence. Then I said the words I had been waiting months to say. That's what you wanted, I replied softly. Everything. Marcus called me 12 times that night. I didn't answer. Not the first call, not the 5th, not the 12th. I let my phone sit face down on the kitchen counter while I helped Sophia brush her teeth and tucked Mateo into bed, listening to their sleepy voices, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The next morning, my phone was full of messages, voicemails, texts, missed calls. His tone changed with every one.
At first, he sounded confused, then angry, then scared. "Anna, you knew about this, didn't you?" one message said. "Call me back right now." Another one came an hour later. "This isn't funny. My accounts are frozen. The bank is calling nonstop." Then, finally, his voice broke. "I need your help," he whispered. "Please." I sat at the kitchen table, holding my phone, staring at that last message for a long time. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to save him. 3 days later, Marcus showed up at my door. Unshaven, wrinkled suit, eyes red. He looked smaller, weaker, like a man who had just discovered he was never as powerful as he thought. "Anna," he said hoarsely, "you set me up." I folded my arms calmly. "No," I said, "you set yourself up. I just stepped out of the way." He ran a hand through his hair. "You knew about the debt, the lawsuits, the loans in your name." "Yes." "You still gave me everything?" "Yes." His voice dropped. "Why?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Because I wanted my children to grow up without debt collectors knocking on their door, and without their mother going to prison for crimes she didn't commit." He opened his mouth, then closed it. Within 2 weeks, everything collapsed. North Valley Bank foreclosed on 3 properties. Private lenders sued him personally. The former business partner won a fraud judgment. His accounts stayed frozen. Lena left him the same week the news hit the business blogs. She didn't even say goodbye. She just packed her bags and disappeared. 1 month later, Marcus was charged with financial fraud and identity theft. My name was cleared. His wasn't. He took a plea deal. 3 years in federal prison, no company, no properties, no money, no family. The day the sentencing became public record, I sat in my car outside the courthouse and cried. Not because I felt sorry for him, but because I finally felt free. 6 months later, I walked into my first job as a junior financial analyst. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's shadow, but as myself. I had finished my degree, passed my licensing exams, and built a career out of the same skills Marcus had mocked for years. One evening, while helping Mateo with his math homework, he looked up at me. "Mom," he said, "are we poor now?" I smiled and kissed his forehead. "No, baby," I said softly. "We're rich in the only way that matters now." I changed my last name back, closed the chapter, and never answered another call from Marcus again.